Welcome to Misplaced Musings. This is Shannon Duffy along with my co-host.
Hi, this is Brian Cowan.
And while normally here in the Misplaced ethos we speak about music, we're branching out a little bit. And today we're just going to have a video game themed podcast where we talk about what we're playing, what we think about current trends, and just shoot the shit and have some fun.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and get started with what we played. Brian, what about you this week?
Yeah, so I'm still playing Elden Ring. Haven't been able to put it down since I started, like most of the world. So yeah, pretty much that is all I have been playing, to the detriment of my sleep.
Listen, sometimes you just gotta game into the morning.
Yeah, and then work your full-time job, and then hang out with your wife, and then just be tired all the time.
I absolutely feel that. I made that mistake on the release of Elden Ring, and I had a day off from work, but that Monday when I came back in, I was running off of a schedule of playing until 6 in the morning, sleeping 2 hours, and then playing until 6 in the morning.
Yeah, I've been doing stuff similar to that. Plus, last night was the entirely unnecessary day that is daylight savings.
I mean, it's necessary if you're a farmer.
It is not. It is not. That is made up nonsense. It is not about farmers.
Uh,
It was created during World War I to save fuel because the idea was to do with like burning lamp oil, or not lamp oil, electricity. They had electricity in World War I, but the idea was to save energy. And there is currently research that says that not only does it not save energy, it uses just as much energy. Like, it doesn't save us any money or energy. And there is an uptick in like car accidents and stuff the week after daylight savings. So it is actually killing us.
Wow, I did not know you were so passionate about daylight
I
savings
am
time.
passionate about, like, I won't get into it because this is not a political podcast, but I am passionate about the little things that need to change that never get attention because, for the last few decades, we have been focused on the same big social issues over and over and over, and are ignoring the little housekeeping issues like, hey, let's get rid of daylight savings. Let's get rid of Columbus Day. Let's get rid of the penny.
Don't you hate on the penny? I don't care that it costs more money to make a penny. No,
No, I am not alone. There's a percentage of Americans who are with me who have admitted to throwing pennies in the trash.
I have never trashed a penny. I save my pennies. I put them in a little roll. I take them to the bank.
I do not save them. I don't throw them in a trash can, but when I'm walking out of a store, if I have pennies in my hand, I will throw them on the ground. And I am like, someone who wants them will pick them up.
You might need that cent one day, Brian, and the penny will laugh at you.
I won't. The only thing I have started doing is I will check the dates on my pennies, because I found one from like 1911 or some such, and it turned out it was worth like $35. And so now I'm like, oh, I'll actually look at them. But other than that, no, it's a worthless coin and it needs to go away.
Wow.
Along with Columbus Day and daylight savings, probably a
Goodness
bunch of other stuff.
gracious.
Yeah, I have thoughts, but they are not about video games, so we will pivot back to video games. What have you been playing?
Okay, so I finished Valkyrie Profile right before recording, actually. And that's a video game. That is certainly a video game that I feel more people should talk about. It's probably one of the best games I think I've ever played in my life.
Really?
It touched me in a particular way. It's fantastic. Only issue is that the final bosses are all absolute bullshit. But besides that, the game was really really well done. The storytelling was phenomenal. The art, the characters, the voice acting was god awful, but I can forgive that. It was a PlayStation 1 title.
Did you mention the music? Because you should mention the music.
Oh god, the music was great. Yeah, music was wonderful. Everything.
I do have to ask though, as a first time player, because like I love Valkyrie Profile,
Yeah, yeah.
but I was worried. It's kind of obtuse in the way it explains itself. the way the systems work, the way the objectives and the endings work, or at least that's how I remember it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So spoilers for Valkyrie Profile.
Yeah, I was just wondering how you felt about that.
Well, I'm happy because I got the A ending because I'm a petulant child. And that's exactly why I got the A ending.
Remind me, is that a good ending? Because I mean, it has been like 10 years since I played this game.
Yeah. So, like I said, spoilers for Valkyrie Profile. Game is old. A ending is the one where you break the seal on Valkyrie's memory.
So she's like Palatina or whatever.
Yeah, she remembers she's Paltina, and Odin dies. You kill Loki. You break the cycle, and Valkyrie becomes the goddess of creation. And then she gets to smooch her boy.
Oh my goodness, that's not the canon ending, is it?
I forget if that's the canon ending.
I don't think it is because in is Valkyrie Profile 2 a sequel or a prequel?
Yes.
Okay, because I remember in 2, Lilith is like imprisoned in a crystal in Lazard's castle. So I assume things didn't go well.
Yeah, well, at the end of the A ending, Lizard talks about how he has a plan to capture her or whatever. So
Oh, so maybe that is canon then. She
yeah,
she saved the world and undid the gods or whatever, and then get trapped in a crystal by some jerk.
and then 4chan incarnate captures her. Yes, but I loved that. I loved it. But the reason why I got the A ending is because I'm like, I don't want to do what Freya tells me. So I malicious compliance and sent one Enhiriar every set, and that's it. Because when I didn't do that, I got the C ending, and she got really mad at me and killed me. So, and then I learned that I'm like some kind of bizarre automaton thing, and there's a cycle and shit, and I wasn't down for that. So I'm like, all right. I noticed that when I did things that the gods didn't like, but just a little bit, my seal dropped. And whenever I learned stuff about Valkyrie, my seal dropped. So I would only send one on Harriar a cycle, which gave me like 10 points towards the seal rating. And then I did whatever I could to tank that shit. Finding on Harriar, finding stories about Valkyrie, visiting places she remembered. And then I got Lucian, and I'm like, I'm gonna send this motherfucker up. And then I got a special scene when I did it, and it tanked my seal rating. And I'm like, ooh, that's beautiful. And then I guess because my rating was low, I got the A ending, which is where Loki kills Lucian and then destroys the world, and then Valkyrie's like, "Nah, I remember who I am, bitch. I'm gonna create everything again." And then poof,
Awesome.
everything is good. Yeah.
And we're getting a new Valkyrie game that looks like it'll probably be bad, but that's okay because it's a new Valkyrie game, right?
If the storytelling's good, I might be able to sit through it.
I feel like it's the worst fear. So when with Final Fantasy like 15 and then 16 and several other things that 7 remake, a lot of older JRPG fans are like, oh, everything's going real time and action RPG and the classic JRPG's dead. And I feel like this is not going to help those fears. It's like, let's revive a classic franchise and turn it into a generic looking action RPG.
And give it to people that have made 3 games that are all not great.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, okay. So they are doing that. They are turning things into action RPGs. Y'all are right to be afraid.
Well, turn-based isn't super popular anymore.
I know, and that's fine. Honestly, I mean, we'll probably discuss this later in the episode, but there is a place for that. If it's if it's the minority of games in the genre, I think that's fine. It's never going to go away. So people who want turn-based will still have games,
Right.
To play. It's just they won't be the AAA games anymore, and I think that's fine. Things change.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can get into it. I'll go ahead and speed round the rest of what I've been playing. I've been playing Muse Dash, and remembering that rhythm games are hard, and also that because I like really fast-paced stuff, the song Pack that I bought was one that started at difficulty level 7 for easy, which apparently I didn't pop into my head that the highest it goes is 10. So the first songs I played were very, very difficult. And it just reminded me that I'm old and I need to get my reaction time back up. But it's a really cute game. It's fun. There's music all over the place. Overly sexualized characters, which makes me sigh, but whatever. I get to hit my screen to the beat. Yeah, and then Elden Ring, everybody's talking that game to death. It's cool. I have a horse. I shoot moons. Excellent.
I wasn't gonna going to go into the specifics because I don't want to spoil anything because that's still a game everybody's playing. Other than that, like I haven't been playing anything, but I have been, as on a bit of an eBay splurge to both feed my retro game habit and buy stuff to fix up and sell because I do that too. And I picked up a couple of Famicoms. I have been wanting one of those forever, and I got myself one and one to sell. I got a Game Gear. I got some Game Gear and Famicom games, and I'm watching a bunch of this stuff. I might try to pick up a PC Engine. We'll see.
That'd be cool. I loved my Game Gear when I was a kid. I played the shit out of it. I had so many nights where I just had my giant bulky battery pack so it didn't die in 5 minutes. And I would play Sonic and this game like Cricket Kid Jr. or something.
I was gonna say I never had one as a kid. I was a Sega fanboy. I had a Genesis and I was super into Sonic and Vector Man, and I drank the Sega Kool-Aid, but I never had a Game Gear because they were expensive, and I ended up with a Game Boy. But I played my friends and loved it, and it was one of those things. Everybody has this, there's a thing you wanted when you were a kid, but you never got, so you're obsessed with it as an adult.
Yeah.
Like you have this weird nostalgia over it because you never got it. That makes it, people who actually had it, they're like, it wasn't that great, and you're like, you don't know because you don't understand not having the thing.
It's like me with Neo Geo. I want one so bad.
Eventually I'm gonna get a Neo Geo Pocket Color and a Wonder Swan. I almost bought a
Dude.
Neo Geo CD,
Oh,
but
whoa.
lost the bidding at the. Okay, I know the load times, but there's some mods you can do to them to improve those
Oh,
slightly.
no. I
But
just meant that would be cool. I wasn't going to talk
oh,
about that. Old systems have old system problems. I don't give a damn. Huh?
on the Game Gear, the mod scene for it's super cool. I'm gonna take that and put a new shell on it, new soundboard, new power board, new buttons, new screen.
Is it even a Game Gear anymore?
The only part of it that will be original will be the motherboard. Everything else will be new. So, in 2022, I'll be playing a Game Gear that's mostly new, has a bright IPS screen, rechargeable batteries with USB-C. It's going to be awesome.
That sounds pretty cool. I think the most time I spent was in the Shinobi game for it, which was super freaking difficult.
The GG Shinobi.
The GG Shinobi.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Like officially on the title screen, like you start that game up and it says the GG Shinobi.
Ah.
Yeah, it was a weird. They were really going on that Game Gear branding.
They were, yeah, just like almost every game on the DS had DS as an acronym
Oh,
somehow.
oh my god.
Uh, they did that quite a bit. But speaking of retro games, that's actually kind of what our topic is today that we're going to talk about. And it's just that retro game renaissance is occurring. A lot of games from the 90s, specifically 16-bit titles, are getting a lot of love now. And then some PlayStation games, but that era in general are getting remakes, remasters, sequels. Everything is coming out, and it's kind of cool, I think.
I agree. I mean, like the Pixel Remasters, and seeing Chrono Cross was the one that surprised me because I was a skeptic who told people that wasn't going to happen, and then I was made a fool by Square Enix.
It's the good kind of being made a fool, though, because you like the result.
So I was telling people, well, even if we get it, it's just going to be like the Final Fantasy VIII remaster. It'll have some quality of life stuff, maybe a tiny bump up in like textures and stuff, but nothing you can't get from emulation, right? Well, then they watching the release trailer, they one up me because they're like, oh, it's gonna have all that plus English Radical Dreamers, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. You got something I can't get from emulation. Thank you.
Yeah, and an all new OST.
That could be good.
Could be good, could be bad. We're not sure.
When you're dealing with, I know they've done a great job with the Pixel Remaster OSTs, but Chrono Cross OST stands are like a religion. They are down, and I mean I'm adjacent to that. I love the soundtrack. I'm just not fanatical.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of the best soundtracks made, but
It's one of those, it's kind of cliche to be like an RPG fan and be like, I love the Chrono Cross soundtrack. But it was one of the first soundtracks that I got the CD audio for.
yeah, I bought the soundtrack at a convention for $10.
Yeah, it was one of those that was awesome because it had the in that opening music, you could hear the instrument sounds. I don't know what those are called, but you could hear like where the bow touches the string on the string instruments. Like it sounded like real music, you know?
Yeah.
And it was one of the first times I noticed that in a video game. It was also one of the first times I listened to a Square Enix soundtrack that I fell in love with that didn't have Uematsu's name on the front of it.
Yeah, that's a thing. I feel like for a lot of people that get into those games because of Final Fantasy, that's kind of a rite of passage to realize that they have a lot of very good composers that are not Uematsu.
They really do. And there are a lot of good composers outside of Square in Japan as well.
Yeah, absolutely, which we'll probably get to eventually in our other our other podcast.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, the remasters, Chrono Cross getting one is great. You were letting me know that Chrono Trigger actually got an update on the PC version.
Yeah, this month. That game's been out for a long time. It was just a port. I don't remember if it was a unique port or if it was the mobile port but pulled over to
It
Steam.
was the mobile port.
I just remember there was a huge backlash when it first dropped on Steam, which was like 5 years ago. People were like, "This game looks and plays like garbage," and in an uncharacteristic move, because most people would assume, "Oh, they're never going to fix that." They actually dropped several updates over the course of the following years and brought it up to par. And it was good, so assumed it was done. But no, they dropped an update just this month. That's like a big quality of life update. They added ultra wide support, the 21 by 9, which I don't have an ultra wide monitor, so I've never experienced that, but I hear it's great. And they improved the D-pad controls and added like little things to do with like the maps and prompts and stuff to make them easier to see. And they improved the auto battle. They made it faster, and you can like just turn it on and it stays on. Little stuff like that. It was just surprising they still have somebody working on that.
Well, it's one of their more well-liked titles, and people get weird about that stuff. So if you don't treat it with what people say is respect, they get very upset.
And also I think Square respects the game. A lot of people think they don't because they don't shower the franchise with so much love. But when it came out on Steam and people were like, "This game is awful," they directly responded with basically, "We are sorry. Like, we thought we did a good job. We will fix it." So they care about the game. And I know they've seen a lot of success on Steam with releasing their older games. Square Enix has. I don't know what the sales number on Chrono Trigger are, but apparently they do justify continued work.
Yeah, which is great. And we can use that to go right into the Pixel remasters. I wanted to bring them up specifically because I think it's interesting to see them do that. They have these games that have all been re-released a whole bunch throughout time, with Final Fantasy 1 through 6. But it's hard to find a version to just tell someone to play.
A definitive version, yeah. US Gamer did a list. Nadia Oxford did a list a while back when that site was still around. That was like the definitive way to play each of them. And yeah, it would require, for one, you would want to play the PSP version. For another, you would want to play the DS version. For another, you'd want to play the Super Nintendo version. It required a lot of jumping around.
Yeah, and now we have a bunch of very competent versions, 1 through 6, easy to play on Steam or mobile. And the only issue with mobile is they really should have controller support. That's really silly that they don't.
They should, and I tend to think that people are reasonable, right? And this is a big company who's worked on games since before I was born.
Mhm.
So I would like to assume they know what they're doing. So I feel like there has to be a reason that they aren't doing it. I don't know. I don't know because it's hard to think of one.
All I can think of is dev money and dev time.
But then they're over here updating Chrono Trigger. Like I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's just some reason that they don't think it's needed. Maybe they have like consumer poll information or something that's like, "Oh, people don't use controls on phones anyway."
I think that could be part of it. And I think the last big issue that people talk about, oh well, there's the issue of before I get into that one, where people are like, "Hey, it doesn't have the secret dungeons." Well, none of those are good, so that's fine.
I wanted to bring up,
The font,
well, the font. No, yeah, we do need to talk about the font. The Square Enix font controversy.
where I'm weird because it doesn't bother me as much as other people, but I can see that it's not good.
I think it probably doesn't bother most people.
Mhm.
People who complain about things are always a minority. Most people don't get up, at a podium and let their opinions be known to the world. They just complain to themselves and go about their business. So, obviously people who have played the old games a lot are going to notice the difference in the fonts immediately and be like, these are not as good. And that will bother them. I think a lot of other people probably won't care. I care, but you don't care, obviously.
Yeah, no, can I read the letters? Yes. Excellent. I can play the video game.
And that's the thing is, so working with all these retro games and reselling them like I do, so when I get them, I have to like RBG mod them and put fancy cables on them and get like a super clear, crisp picture. I will sell somebody something that hooks up with like cheap RF to like composite adapter things off Amazon that I see the picture and I'm like, I would never play on that. And they're like, this is great. So like visual and audio fidelity type stuff, there's a wide range on that as far as what people are willing to accept.
Absolutely. There's a lot there. And I think a big part of it is realizing that it's kind of a niche when you start to get into that and making it look a specific way and sound a specific way. And typically, most people will just like something out of the box.
Exactly. Yeah, most people will just take what they're given and accept it. Like for good or bad. And the fonts. I mean, it'd be cool if have they actually officially responded to at any point?
They made them slightly less terrible.
Okay. And I mean, I know modders have like fixed that day one,
Yeah.
which that's a whole nother thing when dealing with older games and retro games and games in general is like people like me and you have no issue modding a game when needed or when we want
Right.
to. But there's a lot of people who are like, I'm not going to mess with that. It's intimidating, or I don't put unofficial material into my official games, stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's silly, but we can talk about that some other time.
Yeah, staying on the Pixel remasters. So getting to 6, I just wanted to address when you brought up No Secret Dungeons, the whole thing with Live Alive?
Live Alive.
Live Alive, which we will get to, where a lot of people were unhappy that 6 is not what they would consider a definitive version when Live Alive is getting this amazing treatment.
Well, I do want to talk on that a little bit as somebody who has been a Live Alive fan since I was younger in my teens. And it's that I get that people love Final Fantasy VI and they want to see it get the treatment. And their question is, why didn't Square just do that for all the Final Fantasies? And I have a couple ideas. One, people complain about them not looking like the originals, so they tried to make a pixel version of all the games, regular 2D pixel art, and I think for the most part they all look pretty good.
Yeah.
There were a lot of jokes on the grass with FF6, but once people saw it in motion and saw everything happening, people weren't complaining as much. I think it's the best looking versions of like 4 and 5 that I've played. I actually think they look very nice once you get into them and see everything moving and don't just look at the stills.
I agree. That was actually my immediate response to why didn't they go 2D HD for these when they released the Final Fantasy games on mobile for the first time. I don't know if you remember, but they had those really crappy redrawn sprites.
So bad, yeah.
And they faced huge criticism for that. And when Chrono Trigger first came out, it had some modified artwork that they faced huge criticism over. And I think these they were trying to meet a demand for for something that was accurate to the original experience. Like they were like, okay, we're going to give you what you want. These look like pixel. They're pixels in the name. We're making a big deal about that because y'all made a big deal about that. Here's what you wanted. And then some people being like, oh, why isn't this something completely different? I'm like, you're missing the point.
I feel like there's missing the point, and also the fact you could sell Final Fantasy VI if you released it on a TI-86. People will buy FF6 no matter how you treat it.
They really will.
However, a game like Live Alive, where a dozen people have played it online, in the West anyway, because we never got a translation, it never got talked about. The only reason anyone knows about it is because it was translated by Aeon Genesis Translations. Love those guys. Talk about them a lot, and there's a reason. They basically helped formulate my opinion on what games I liked when I was a teenager because of all of the translations they did. And that's the thing, is this game, no one knew about it. The people that loved it, and there's a reason for that. It's a great experience. It's emotional, has great storytelling, a wonderful way of showing different ideas, 8 different scenarios written by different people.
You're forgetting the most important part. It has a character with a cowboy hat.
It does. He's a cowboy.
Yeah. Cowboys in JRPGs, except for Irvine, are the best.
That is true. Irvine's terrible, but
He's not a cowboy. He's just a guy with a hat. That's all he is.
yeah, no, he's a modern day Texan.
Oh, don't.
Anyhow,
Yeah, moving ahead. Yeah, Floridian.
yes, as I ride my gator into battle. The thing is, it needed something to make people pay attention to it. And just releasing like a pixel remaster of Live Alive, I would have been hyper excited because I still get Live Alive. But what's the average RPG fan gonna think? However, now people that have never heard about it, and I've even seen this on this RPG Center Discord that we're on, now people will play it. They weren't even going to look at it before because it took emulation. But now they're making a shiny new version of it. They'll play Live Alive. They've even talked about wanting to play it. So here we are in 2022, where this game that nobody ever talked about, that all the fans had to just sit and be like, we're never going to experience this in any other way, we finally get something. And then a whole bunch of people are like, but FF6 should get it too. And I'm like, I understand. But by doing this, you're kind of like tainting the release of this game that I've been waiting for like 15 years of my life for. It upset me a little bit.
I get it. They're wrong. I was just gonna say they're wrong. What they really want is for 6 to get the Final Fantasy VII remake treatment someday. And I think they forgot that's what they actually wanted.
And then they're going to complain that it's not good when it happens.
Yeah, but it is awesome. We're getting a very niche, unreleased game. It's good for fans of the game like you. It's good for fans of JRPGs. It's good for game preservation, because a game that no one cared about, and when people don't care about things, they don't preserve them.
Yep.
Is getting a remaster, which means it will have a bunch of new fans, which means, that part of history will be much more likely to be preserved in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a big part of why I actually love what's happening with this little retro renaissance we're talking about, because not only are we getting things like Live Alive and Front Mission, we're also getting games that were released that nobody has preserved or have other versions of. We have the Saga Collection, 1 through 3, Final Fantasy Legends, 1, 2, and 3, that there were never other releases on those. There's a Wonder Swan release that never got brought over here, and there were 2 DS releases for 2 and for 3 that never got brought over here. Over here being the United States of America, if people didn't gather that by the talk of Florida and Texas.
I'm going to assume most of those also didn't see a PAL release.
I imagine. Yeah, I don't think they did, especially the Wonder Swan one, considering,
I mean, that system is amazing, and I wish we had gotten that system. People deserved that system.
Oh, it's great. Somebody fan translated the that version, and that's my favorite way to play Final Fantasy Legend 1 or Saga 1 is the Wonder Swan color version. It's great. Those games getting a collection, the Mana games getting a collection, Trials being translated, given a name, given a remake that wasn't garbage like Secret of Mana's remake.
I was going to say, was Trials good? See, I haven't actually played any of these Saga or Mana collections or remakes or anything.
Yeah, I liked the Trials remake, and a lot of people liked the Trials remake. What they did is they took the original, gave it a more up-to-date battle system that's a little bit more actiony, and it paid off really well. The voice acting was a choice. And you know what? It's not even the voice actor's fault half the time. It's just the script writing. For example, that poor woman that had to play Carly's voice. That's not her fault that Kawi speaks Wyke Whis. It's just what she was given to speak.
Right.
And a lot of people wanted the script changed. They're like, this is an old game from the 90s. I'm like, that's the point. The point is that we're getting that. So they weren't going to change the script or update it. So it's a little dated in that regard. The story is very much just good versus evil, go get 'em, boys, which is fine. That's not necessarily a bad thing. But the game plays well. The music remasters are great. It looks good. All the things that Secret of Mana remake didn't do, pretty much, they did for the Trials
I
remake.
was gonna say. So yesterday I was looking for something. Did they ever remaster Legend of Mana?
Legend of Mana did get a remaster.
Was that any good? Now I'm just quizzing you on the quality of the Mana remakes and re-releases.
I mean, that's fine. The Legend of Mana remake was great, or remaster was great. It lets you skip combat, which a lot of people enjoy because there was a lot of fighting that you couldn't skip. It wasn't random. It happened at specific intervals, but you had to always go through it when you walked by. It looks nice. They touched everything up pretty well. The music is good. The changes they made to the music was all
The
right.
reason I brought that one up is so I did play Secret of Mana and
Mhm.
I enjoyed it back in the day and I enjoyed it more recently when I played it, but Legend is the Mana I have the most nostalgia for.
Yeah, it's also where people started to not like the series.
It was a pretty big departure from the previous stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, so the others all felt like natural extensions. You had the first game in the second Densetsu series, and then you had Secret, which was the second, and you could see the jump from Final Fantasy Adventure to Secret of Mana. It was logical. And then you saw that to Trials, which was also logical. And then it went to Legend, and you're like, what the fuck happened? Because it went from just like a basic action RPG with the ring system and everything to a strange building your own world map, having a million systems on top of systems experience.
Dark Cloud kind of reminded me of it in the way that the town building worked, where you would collect pieces of a town and place them on a map, and they had functions for you. But all I was gonna say is real quick when you were talking, I just want to point out, by the way, I am still not used to hearing Trials of Mana. When you say that, when other people say it, it doesn't click in my head what that is because forever on the internet that was Seiken Densetsu 3,
Or Secret of Mana too.
everybody talked about it that way, and it was like, oh, we got an English translation, and then everybody was pushing for it to be localized officially someday because everybody was like, this is the holy grail of unported or unlocalized Square
Yeah.
Enix games. Everybody needs to play it, and it was all over the internet for years and years and years. So that is the name that I associate with it. So Trials of Mana, I'm always like, which one is that?
Yeah, Trials of Mana is. I thought it was a good name, but like you said, it's just. I was so used to either calling it Second Densetsu 3 or Secret of Mana 2 that it took a little bit to get used to saying Trials, but I do that now because that's the official release.
Yep, and that's another interesting thing with all these re-releases and remasters. They're bringing like definitive official localization changes
Yep.
to certain things that people have become accustomed to for years, and now they're like, no, we're gonna fix that. So it's kind of interesting when that happens.
Yeah, it is. And like one of the big things was they were the names for the God Beast in Trials were just God Beast in the fan translation. They get called Benevedons in the new one, and I just preferred God Beasts.
Yeah, some changes, are better than others. In the Discord, we were talking a while back about, these aren't recent changes, but when Square, unified things like Tina or Terra or whatever, and Aerith or Ares, the
Eris,
Eris,
yeah, Eris or
yeah,
Aerith.
and Barts and Butts.
I miss
I miss
Butts.
Butts as well. I get why they went with Barts, but I pour one out for Butts.
Yeah, I also liked Tina, but Tara went out on that
I
one.
like Terra just because, now it's nothing special. But when I was a kid, it sounded, mystical and cool. Like I was,
Ooh.
whenever I was a kid, any Latin word sounded neat. It had like an air of mystery.
Right, right. That's part of why I got into anime and stuff was the different language that was presented a lot of the time.
Which is probably why the weeb in me prefers the Japanese title for like the Mana series. I see that and it sounds. I'm like, what is that? It sounds cool. Like,
Yeah, no, there's a lot of great RPG stuff, but to cut away from RPGs a little bit, we also have things like Streets of Rage 4 that happened, the new Ninja Turtles beat 'em up, Windjammers 2 for some fucking reason.
did anyone ever play that with you?
Yes, I got a couple people. I love Windjammers. It's a great fighting game for people that aren't good at fighting games. It's wonderful.
Yeah, you are correct. We have gotten lots of non-RPG re-releases, remasters, spiritual successors, and new sequels. Like you said, Streets of Rage, things like that.
Yeah, and a lot of them are done by Emu, which is a company that they did Streets of Rage 4, they did Windjammers 2, they're doing the Ninja Turtles beat 'em up remake or sequel. They've been doing a lot of good work.
This little trend has been going on for a few years. Because
Mhm.
I would honestly include like Sonic Mania in it as well.
Oh yeah, Sonic Mania was fantastic.
I could have a whole podcast with my feelings on Sonic Mania. But it's nice to see, and I know when I have these discussions with people on online communities and social media, a lot of them see it, they're very dismissive of it. They're like, "Oh, it's just people weaponizing our nostalgia to get money from us. It's just a cash grab. It's just, a jaded, cynical view to it. It's just a way of getting more money. It's nothing special." And I mean, obviously, some projects like you play them and you're like, "This is garbage," and they were just trying to get money.
Yeah, that happens, but honestly, what it comes down to me is, and this was the next topic I was going to talk about, is if it's a good or bad thing that this is happening. And I overall think it's good. I think that, yeah, it might be a nihilistic cash grab thing, but you know what? So is everything in capitalism. So that's okay.
Like, I want to be able to buy nice things,
Yes.
okay, and that doesn't mean
Hmm.
that I don't want to do a great job at my work. It means I want
Exactly.
to do a great job at my work, but also get paid a lot. But those are not, mutually exclusive. It's not like I want to get paid a lot and do crap work. And also, what people seem to forget, they're weaponizing our nostalgia. The thing is, the people making these games, they are also people. They have nostalgia too. So in a lot of these cases, I
Yes.
would I would argue that, they might be just as excited to make these games as people are to play them because they are also fans of these games.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. And I really like that you said that these people making video games are people, because it's easy to forget that. Now, while I am never ever going to say this about giant companies and the heads of those giant companies, the actual people working on the stuff, the devs themselves, the coders, the artists, they're all people that are really into things usually. Some of them just go to clock in, but a lot of them are passionate about projects, which is why we get stuff like Streets of Rage 4, which is beautiful, well done, and a great love letter to the original series.
There was a time, I don't want to say how many years ago, let's just throw a number, 20 years ago. There was a time 20 years ago in the early 2000s or something where if you had approached your corporate office with an idea like, "Hey, I want to do a pixel remaster of Final Fantasy 2." They would be like, "No, that's not going to make money. People don't buy old crap. Like, we need to
Yeah.
make the new like third person action RPG, whatever."
Mhm.
These like we have learned that in all forms of media, we're having this throwback nostalgia, revisit old properties, etc. And I think it's a twofold thing. I think it's one that creators are nostalgic and they want to revisit old properties because it's fun. And they can sell it to their bosses now because these things are making money. They can say, "Hey, can we do a Chrono Cross remaster?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure. Our Chrono Trigger thing sold plenty on Steam, so we can totally justify that."
Yeah, that's definitely something that's happening. And I feel also that on top of all of that, people like the things from when they were younger, especially in times that are kind of uncertain. We have this thing that lets us look up whatever we want now and check all kinds of content. So we're getting constant content at all times, which means we're getting a bunch of new stuff faster than a lot of people are used to handling, which also means our opinions on what's good and what isn't tends to go back to a time where not as much content came out and we felt that it was more catered or better done. So it's a really, our generation's a really good one to hit nostalgia bait with because we have that bias. You could just look at release dates of video games, anime, TV shows from 1990 and then from 2015. Anime in particular, starting from 2000 and I think it was 11 until now, more anime has been made than any anime up to that point.
Yeah, I get that. Like looking on Crunchyroll at simulcasts and stuff.
Looking at game releases, we release far more video games a year now than we did At least big companies, not counting the indie scene.
I had this talk with somebody on Discord not too long ago about just the sheer number of games released on Steam every, just pick a time period, just say a week. Like every week, it is ridiculous.
And that's the thing, is that just so many games coming out now compared to back then. And even like I said, even not counting indies. And if you count indies, whew,
Yeah.
there's a lot that's coming out.
That is kind of a problem because I mean it's a good problem. It's also it's just the way things are. I'm not saying things should change. So with so many games released, right? You're going to have a lot of people who only play AAA titles because
Mhm.
there's just so many games, so little time, and games are so expensive that they're like, well, I'm going to
Right.
buy these big games that everybody's playing. And then you're going to have people who only buy the games that they are nostalgic for. So they're like, well, I'm buying the Pixel remasters. I'm buying, you know, Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger, etc. And I think that means that a lot of games that are not remasters, that are new IPs, but not AAA, are going to get ignored because people are like, I don't have time for an unknown quantity.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I feel if they have a AAA attached to it, most people will pay more attention to it. For example, if Square did the right marketing and was like, we're releasing a new 2D HD role playing game that's the same caliber as the classics that you love, people will be interested.
They used to do that kind of stuff with trailers all the time, and I mean, I'm sure they still do, but where at the beginning it would be like, from the people who brought you Final Fantasy, you know, uh,
Ooh.
from the, like they did that with anime a lot and with games. With anime it would be like from the legendary composer of Cowboy Bebop and the mecha designer of Macross Plus. They would just name drop crap like that, and you'd be like, okay, I've never
Hmm.
heard of this thing, but I've heard of these other things, so yeah, I'm gonna check this out.
That's a big part of why they can sell things like that. And it makes me sad because the indie scene is wonderful and it has a lot of cool ideas and will try things that AAA studios won't because it's three people in a basement living off of pizza rolls anyway, is the stereotype. And they can kind of mess around with systems and things that normally wouldn't fly because they don't have, it's not being focus tested to hell, and they don't have a board that they have to make happy. Now, of course, that's a stereotype. There are plenty of indie studios, like 20 people, etc., or more than that. However, I was thinking of stuff like Undertale or Meat Boy.
Not Super Meat Boy, just Meat Boy.
I mean, I played both, but yes, Super Meat Boy.
Do you remember? Did you ever play? What is it? That is the guy, or this is the guy, or
I
whatever.
want to be the
I
guy.
want to be the
Yeah,
guy. That was the game. Oh man,
I love I want to be the guy. It's mean but fun, nostalgia bait. It's beautiful.
indie games before the big indie boom on like now, if you want to play an indie game, you just go to like Steam or something, and they're there.
Well, before X, so like there's a big boom on that on XBLA. Xbox Live Arcade, in my opinion, is why indies came into the mainstream at all.
It was a huge part of it, and then later on, of course, Sony got on the same
Yeah,
wagon and invested a lot.
yeah, absolutely. That's a big part of the market in the early, or well, the late aughts and early 2010s was these companies getting on the indie train a little bit. I mean, you had things like Castle Crashers that popped off. You had things such as, well, Alien Hominid, not as much. It was a little too early. Super Meat Boy, obviously. Isaac was a huge deal. Yeah, Rogue Legacy did pretty well. But like just thinking of XBLA stuff, you also had Braid.
Yeah, all those games. There were a lot of games like that. They're almost like legendary at this point because they got so much coverage. They were like gaming media darlings.
Yeah, oh, that indie game movie that had Fez, Super Meat Boy, and Braid.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, it is cool that these days, thanks to certain people. I was thinking Eric Van Allen from
Mm-hmm.
Axe of the Blood God, pushing like talking about like Vampire Survivor.
Yeah, Vampire Survivor.
Like I bought that because coverage from him and other people. We have people who will gush about certain indie titles, and that's great. It sucks because there's so many that some still fall through the cracks.
Some do, but I mean that's anything where a lot of releases happen. But the individual that made Vampires Survivor actually got their start. They made a game called I Want to Make a Game with Zombies in It for XBLA, which was a short little game that lasted as long as the song was playing, where you just shot zombies and tried to survive. It was a twin stick. Like, what was that big one from the arcades back in the day? I always forget.
Smash TV.
Smash TV, thank you. Yeah, it was very Smash TV inspired. And then they made Dishwasher Samurai, and then they made Salt and Sanctuary, and now we're here back with Vampire Survivor. They've been around, and a big part of why they've been around is XBLA Arcade.
See, and that's an interesting thing about indie games is I did not know the pedigree of that guy. Like I played Salt and
Oh,
Sanctuary and I liked it a lot. I didn't realize it
yeah,
was made by the same person, and that's an interesting thing. Like it takes so much for any sort of indie dev to become a household name.
yeah.
You know, I can tell you who makes like major JRPGs or major American, AAA games, stuff like that. But you ask me who makes like Super Meat Boy, I don't know that person's name.
Everett Melody's great. He's a psycho. It's great. It's sick sense of humor. Only thing that makes me sad about that whole thing is the relationship he had with Danny B is gone, which means we don't get those beautiful soundtracks anymore for any of the Team Meat games.
That is sad.
It is because Danny B is great. Oh, before I forget, I did want to talk about one more XBLA game. And I don't believe I forgot about it, but Geometry Wars kind of helped push that entire thing out.
I forgot that started there.
Yeah, it was what made people pay attention to XBLA was Geometry Wars.
I have actually never played a Geometry Wars game, but I remember seeing so much about it.
It was super fun. I loved trying to get the pacifist run score as high as I could. Just trying to not shoot things and survive and get points. It was
That sounds awful.
it was fun though. There's a lot of cool skill based things you could do in that game, and indies kind of helped push, in my opinion, this renaissance we're getting because indies it's easier to use older style graphics because it's cheaper than trying to get a whole team together to do a fancy 3D game that pops out with all kinds of texturing and everything. Where as long as you're not doing something that's huge, it takes a bunch of sprites, right? Because then that gets expensive. You can just ask SNK after going out of business after making KOF 13. So you don't see a lot of indie groups doing that, but you do see things like Shovel Knight. I feel things like Shovel Knight helped push this revolution a little bit because big companies noticed. A lot of Japanese companies, in particular, when I was reading translated interviews, were like, "Why do people want to play old things? We're making new stuff." And then you see like something like Shovel Knight, and everyone's like, "Oh, people still like Mega Man games."
Yeah, I was gonna say, going back to one of the first things we talked about, that Chrono Cross, or Chrono Trigger, sorry. When the
Yeah.
Steam release for that happened and there was the backlash, I had read an interview with one of the devs. I don't remember who, but one of the guys at Square Enix. He was confused about why we wanted the original pixelized sprites versus like new hand drawn ones. He was like, "Why do y'all want old blocky? Like, why do y'all want pixels?" He was like, "Those pixels are old. Like they that's a technical limitation, the pixels showing. Like we don't have to do that anymore. Why do y'all want
Mm-hmm.
that?" And it's like, we like the way it looks. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like Japanese people for a longest time, and not just Japanese devs. There were some
Of
Americans
course,
too
yeah.
who didn't think that would sell.
And a lot of times when we hear that, we're like, that's wild. Why would we say the way they say that? You have to remember people that are really into video games aren't really the ones that buy the most video games. And a lot of those devs are thinking about like, how can I get Call of Duty money?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it. Like I have like my wife, she's a little younger than me, and I cannot get her to play like Super Nintendo era 2D games to save my life. I have tried. She just she started with like PlayStation 1, so she's just not she wants games that look, pretty to her. And that's going to be modern 3D games.
Yeah, which it is interesting to think about that because I grew up with a lot of the different older style. I can usually look through it. I still think PS1 and N64 games that are 3D are garbage looking. So we've been going at this for a little bit.
Yeah, and I've been going off topic here and there. So yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point of Misplaced Musings. We're musing. Yeah.
Misplaced bullshit.
Misplaced bullshit. And that's. Uh, we did have a fun conversation. We went over a lot of stuff. And if people want to continue to maybe have a conversation with you, Brian, where's somewhere they can find you?
Where can they find me?
Where can they find you?
Why, right here on the Misplaced Podcast Network. No, they can find me on Twitter at Brian C Nerd. That's pretty much the only place I'm currently active. I do a little bit of stuff on Instagram under the same name. I'm on Discord a lot. That's pretty much it. I will update you in the future when I have new, endeavors. What about you, Shannon?
I am on Twitter at Teeps the Great. I'm also on Twitch at Teeps the Great, and that is twitch.tv/Teeps the Great. This week I took off because it was my birthday and everybody wanted to talk to me, and now I'm tired of people and don't want to talk to people. So I'm probably going to do a bit of streaming this week. But
Happy birthday, by the way.
thank you. Thank you. I'm old.
It'll come back around. You'll start feeling a little younger. Like at some point in your 30s, you're like, I'm not as old as I thought I was. And then a year or two later, you'll go back to feeling old. It comes and goes. It's up and down.
So here's the deal, right? I want to be old. I want to be 70 years old.
You keep saying that. We'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna revisit this with you every couple of years and see if your feeling changes.
I will. You know what? My physical body, whatever. I just want to be grumpy and to be able to get away with saying mean shit because I'm old.
You can do that now.
But it's not as effective.
Oh goodness. Well, so what are you going to be streaming this week?
I'm probably going to be streaming Super Robot Wars W because of the fan translation that got released on that.
Awesome. So I guess if people like TRPGs or mecha or anime or some sort of weird blender combination of all of them, they should check that out.
And somebody doing really bad voices while reading, because that is absolutely going to happen.
Oh, you're going to do that? Okay, that is fantastic. I might watch.
Yeah. I'm going to try to do different accents depending on the characters and stuff. So you'll see. Also, I have a robust system in place to let people make my playing of video games atrocious for myself using channel points. So there are all kinds of stuff for making me use accents or ad lib. It's a fun time.
When did you put that in place? I need to do that. I need to take advantage of that.
Oh, it's been for a while, and I've had some people ruin runs on games like what was that one that's the Metroidvania Dead Souls?
Dead Cells?
Dead Cells. Yeah, I got to the boss the first time ever. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna beat it. And then they're like, redeem points, do not heal, redeem points, do not dodge roll. I'm like, I hate you.
That's cruel.
Yeah, I died. I was very upset. But that's part of the fun of it. So yeah, if you ever want to come on down, I usually stream from Thursday to Sunday, but lately I've been doing it more during the week. So I might just pop one in Monday or Tuesday. We don't know.
Awesome. Well, this has been our first Misplaced Musings podcast. We will be back with another Misplaced Melodies, our video game music podcast. We're going to try to do some new things with that, but y'all should check us out on Twitter under Misplaced Pod and any of your podcatchers.
Absolutely. So make sure to jump in on that, listen to our stuff, and just have a wonderful rest of your day.
Later.